show where I introduce you to awesome people just like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. My guest today is Dr. Stephanie Berg. And just like the guest last week, Dr. Anthony Lim, she is both a doctor and a lawyer. So I joke that she can actually sue herself for malpractice if she wants to. So she's here today with a really interesting topic because so many people are now moving their businesses online. And she's going to tell us things that we need to know about for our website. But I also want you to know that she is a naturopathic doctor who actually trained at TrueNorth. And so I'd like to hear a little bit about that as well from her. Please welcome to the show, Dr. Stephanie Berg. Thanks so much for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I am completely honored. As I had told Chef AJ before, I am a longtime follower and fan, and so it is an honor and a pleasure to be here. And I trained as a lawyer after college. I went to law school and then practiced business law in Los Angeles for 6 years, and then discovered naturopathic medicine. And I had no idea what naturopathic medicine was before 2013. And actually, we are not licensed in every state, so only 22 states currently, and the District of Columbia, the US Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico. And I discovered it, and it was just a passion I had to follow. So I went to naturopathic medical school. And after my first year of school, I did do a residency for a month at TrueNorth and had the honor of witnessing what happens there. And that's where I learned about Chef AJ, learned about you, and then graduated recently. So graduated last June from naturopathic medical school. I then practiced women's health, actually right near where Chef AJ used to live, her home ground in Los Angeles. And then when COVID hit, as did all of the medical professionals, moved to online practice and discovered that I loved it. I'd actually, during medical school or doing naturopathic medical school, wanted to direct my practice towards telemedicine. And so I had been doing a lot of research about the laws because they are very specific, very detailed, and the laws haven't really caught up to the technology. But when COVID hit, they were forced to. And so everyone, I think it sped things up by about 4 years or 5 years, maybe more. And so everyone's moving online. And I started getting lots of questions from my naturopathic medical colleagues about, oh my gosh, what can I do? What are the rules? How do I start an online business? And so I dove into that and found that I love doing that. And I'm excited to help my colleagues. And moreover, people just in general are moving their businesses online. And so I started to realize everywhere I looked, like, no, people need to know these things, what they need to have on their websites and to protect their businesses online. Both things that are required and then things by law, and then just things that are important to protect themselves and their businesses and their hard work. So it's really a passion of mine now. And I'm sort of dividing my practice right now between the naturopathic medicine, which I love, and particularly women's health and GI health, and the legal practice. So focusing on legal practice and services for naturopathic doctors, because those are my main clients, and online businesses and online health practitioners, and people like yourself who are growing businesses online in the health field, in the health area, because even if you're not a licensed medical professional, there are certain things that you want to make sure you disclose when you're doing anything related to health. And the laws are very specific, especially for licensed professionals.
Yeah.
Well, so that's my story.
I would imagine a lot of things are going to change now with this pandemic, because I know we were supposed to do our conference and it finally got canceled, but we had a really hard time getting out of our contract, and it
Oh,
cost us
yeah.
quite a bit of money. Even though we legally couldn't hold it, the hotel was still trying to make us do it. It was crazy. And I imagine going forward, I'll never do another live event because of this experience, but I imagine going forward, there's going to be like COVID clauses and things like that, because this was something new and unexpected.
It's exactly, you got it exactly right. So all of these, like what's called the force majeure clause in the contract, which is, okay, no one's liable if we have to both get out of the or one of us can't perform our end of the contract because of it's usually like acts of God or government orders. And so now there's all of this argument if the clause doesn't specifically relate to a pandemic or an epidemic, well, does this count as an act of God? Or exactly like you said, now everyone in their agreements, they're putting in all of this language specifically for a COVID situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's great. I know you have, oh, hey, Dr. Krant, Dr. Jessica Krant is watching, and she says she totally needs this topic for sure. So that's terrific, Dr. Krant, because I'm going to share Dr. Berg's email, and she's happy to work with people on this. So this is great. We love that not only doctors watch this show, but the actual former guests do. So thank you so much for watching. And she will be coming up in an upcoming episode. So did you want to talk a little bit about your experience at TrueNorth? What was that like for you? Or did you want to jump right into the legal side and share your slides?
Well, I will definitely talk about my experience at TrueNorth, because it was a life-changing experience, right? You see all of these people who are on multiple medications or have multiple health issues. Even within days, you see changes in people's health. And even the people who don't go there too fast, or just eating the healthy plant-based meals, vegan, SOS free meals. It was really a great experience. And I sort of wish that I had the chance to do it a little later in my medical school career, just because I didn't know as much after first year, but it was still an amazing experience, and got to work with all of the wonderful people there. And so it was a great experience.
Did you like
And
Dr.
I
Roll?
wouldn't have learned about you that otherwise, probably, or not as quickly.
What'd you think of Dr. Alan Goldhammer?
Oh, he's a character, I guess, but he's wonderful in every way, and he gets his point across. And I did have the pleasure of shadowing Dr. Clapper, because he was still there at the time.
Wow, that must have been a great learning experience.
He's an amazing teacher too.
Yeah, cool. Well, I'd love to see your presentation, because I'm sure I can learn something new from you, because I do most of my business online now.
Wonderful. And I should also say, I also had the pleasure of shadowing Dr. Perez too, naturopathic doctor who you've had on your show. So sorry, I just wanted to add that in.
She's lovely too. We love Dr. Perez.
So, okay, I will go ahead and share my screen. I did put it in a presentation just to, just in case there was too much detail as I talked. So to make sure it wasn't overwhelming. So this is all about, now I just want to make clear, this is not specifically for licensed professionals. So this is really just, there would be a whole separate presentation for that about all of the ins and outs if you're a licensed professional. This is definitely applicable to licensed professionals, but just wanted to make that note that there are definitely other things to consider for medical doctors, naturopathic doctors, attorneys, things like that. So we just want to discuss, you may be growing your practice online, your business, doing online courses. What are the things you need, both required by law that you may not have, and things you need to protect your business, or you may want to start thinking about? So hopefully I can share some good info that people might find helpful. We will talk about disclaimers. So this is my disclaimer. The information here is, I don't know everyone's individual situation. So this is just information and education, not specific legal advice to everyone here. But we will discuss the importance of these on your website and in all of your online documents. So the first thing that you really want to actually are required to have by law is your website privacy policy. So this is actually required by California and the European Union if you collect any personal information through your website. So if you have an email opt-in form where you get someone's name and email, or even just their email, or a contact form where you allow people to put their name and email in and then send you a message, or any type of information, you're required by law to tell people in this privacy policy the information you're collecting. So exactly what you're collecting from them. Is it name, email, billing information, anything else you're collecting, how you're collecting it. So you just want to tell them, well, we get this when you purchase a product, or if I'm giving you a free gift in exchange for your email, or a video series, and then how you store it. Do you have any protections for their information? If you don't, that's okay. Ideally you do, but if you don't, you just have to tell them. The goal of this is to disclose to them how you use their information. And then what do you do with it? Do you just give it to those third-party service providers that are helping you run your website? So your hosting platform, maybe they're seeing the information, or do you'd have to give it to payment processors. So you have to make clear exactly who you're giving it to and sharing it with. And then if they want to remove their information, how do they do that? Can they contact you? And usually you'll see, and everyone is required to now by the EU law to have those unsubscribe links in the emails. It's also a federal email can spam act. You need to have that. And then also the EU requires that. But usually the MailChimp or ActiveCampaign, any type of those email messengers, email collection systems will have options for you to do that. And then to make sure people are aware of the privacy policy, you just put it in the footer of your website. So you've probably seen that in lots of websites where you see the privacy policy in the footer. And that's just because that's where most people know to look for it. So they can click the link there and find out all the privacy rules for your website. And that's basically all you have to do. And then you just have to follow that. And then if you update your privacy policy, you just put the date that you're updating it on there. And usually when I create them, you'll make sure, you tell people what happens if you update it. So how do they know if there are changes? Are you just going to put the effective date of the policy on there? Or are you going to send them an email to let them know there have been changes? It doesn't matter, it's your choice, but you just have to let people know. And you can tell them, oh, be sure to check it often just in case there's a change, anything like that. So that is number one important thing, because this is required by law. The next thing that is not required by law, but is very good to have, you'll also put this in the footer of your website, and it's the website terms and conditions. So these are the terms that you tell people, these are the rules for how my website runs and how you can use my website. So it tells them what they can and cannot do. And this is something we'll talk about also for your group programs and courses. You're going to need something called a terms of use, which is very similar, but that's specific rules of the road for your programs and courses. But this is for your website in general. So what it does is basically probably have blogs or videos, or in your case, Chef AJ, recipes in your videos. So much hard work and photos, so much hard work that has gone into creating all of the content for your website. And all of that is protectable. As soon as you create it, you own the copyright in it. You own the intellectual property in it, even without registering with the USPTO. You own that right. Now, you get extra benefits if you do register it with the Copyright Office, but you want to make sure people know that that is your work, and if you don't want them to copy it, you need to tell them. So if you do allow them to copy it, you can tell them that too, but most of the time people don't want people copying their hard work and copying their content and then selling it as their own. So you make sure people know, put them on notice. And then you can tell them, like, if you have blogs or you allow comments or posts, or if you have a member area where people can post. Well, maybe you don't like what someone posts, so you want to delete it. Well, you can say, I have the right to delete anything you put on my, anything you say. And you want to make sure you have that right. You also probably want to make sure you have the right to restrict someone's access if you don't like how they're using your website. You can put your payment policies in your terms and conditions for your website. It is nice, though, to have them in a specific terms of use that we'll discuss, that they agree to before they click to agree. But if you put your payment policy and your return refund policy, all of that in your website terms and conditions, then it's always there for people to see, so they can't argue. And what you do is you just have like a button they click or something before they actually hit purchase that links them to the terms and conditions and says, you agree, just so you know, by purchasing this product, this is the rule. And you can't come to me later and say you didn't know, because you affirmatively agreed and clicked yes. And then very, very important for your website terms and conditions. And you can also do this in a separate, even like clearer document called just a disclaimer separately. But if you just want the terms and conditions, you want to put disclaimers in there. And these are what tells people, like if you are a health coach, or someone who's talking about nutrition, you want to make sure they know, if you are not a nutritionist or you're not a medical doctor, you want to make sure they know that you're not a medical doctor and what you're telling them is not nutrition advice, is not medical advice, because you don't want someone to come back later and say, well, I was harmed by something you said to me. So we'll talk more about disclaimers next. But there's more you can put in there. And this is really to protect yourself and control how people use your website. And next are the disclaimers. So there's options and ways to do this. Like I said, you definitely can put them in the terms and conditions. You can also add a small disclaimer at the footer of your website. So for example, if this is information and education only, this is not medical, legal, professional advice, but you tailor it to your specific website or the type of information you're providing. And then you can also have a completely separate website disclaimer that you link to at the footer as well. And I sort of like to do that because then it's crystal clear. You're disclaiming that you don't know their individual situation. You're just giving information and education. And I will add that this is very important actually for nutrition related things, because interestingly, the nutrition laws, they all vary state by state. And there are some states that get very upset when people give nutrition related information and they are not licensed as dietitians or registered dietitians in their state. As long as you're doing more group related things, you're much safer. So probably not as much of a worry, but always good to just have those disclaimers. And also just little disclaimers in any ebooks you share or webinars you give. Like, for example, if you give a webinar, you might at the beginning give a disclaimer like I did. But if you're giving health information, then maybe, this is information and education only. If you are a medical doctor, you can say so. I am a medical doctor, but I don't know your individual situation. So what I'm giving you today is just information and education only and not medical advice. You should always seek the advice of your individual doctor, or you could, if you can work with them, if you're licensed in their state, work with me. And if you're a health coach, I'm not a medical doctor, so this is not medical advice, that sort of thing. And really, again, like I said, the goal is to protect you from someone claiming that something you said on your website or in a webinar that they took and relied upon, and then they were harmed. It's just some insurance. And so, you can make it as crystal clear as you want with the separate document or in many disclaimers. This one is also very important because it is required. And interestingly, the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, has even given specific advice for online media, social media influencers on what they're supposed to say. Because as the world is moving online more and more, the government is starting to become aware, and the government's on Instagram and Facebook, and they are seeing what's going on. So FTC requires that you disclose if you are recommending or talking about any product or service and you're getting something in return from someone buying that product. So if it's an affiliate link, if you've signed up as an affiliate for another product or service and you're getting a commission in return for someone clicking your link, or very common now is all of the telesummits. I think they're wonderful. People get such great information, but often there are lots of affiliates. So you'll see the emails where people say, "Oh, join this summit." And if they click the link, then that person might get a commission if they pay. Technically, according to the FTC, you need to be actually disclosing to people that if they, click the link, that you are getting some sort of commission in exchange. It's allowed. It's not that it's bad. You just need to tell people. Or that goes for any product. If it's a health product you really like, and you just need to tell people. Sponsored products, free products. And on social media, it's very common on social media, Instagram, Facebook, people still have the same links and recommend things. So the FTC has given a specific disclosure for social media. I just think I don't know why I get a kick out of that, but you just have to use hashtags. So they've given specific hashtags you can use. So the hashtag ad, or hashtag sponsored, or hashtag paid. So you just have to use those. And a lot of people try to hide their disclosures in their terms and conditions, or some other place of the website, and say, "Oh, I may recommend affiliate links, or I may recommend products sometimes and get a commission." But the FTC's also said you can't do that. It has to be very clear. It can't be vague, and you can't hide it. It has to be clear and close to whatever you're providing or recommending. So if it's in an email, you need to put it in the email if you're recommending something in the email. Or if it's in a social media post, just put the hashtag. Or if it's in a webinar or something, you can just say it. Just make sure people know. And you can do this really nicely. So because usually you're recommending things that you like. I find that's usually the case. It's recommending things or products or people or services that you like. So you just tell people, "Listen, if you purchase this product or click my link, I will get a commission, but I only recommend products that I love and recommend to my friends and family, and you won't pay more." Because usually it's the case that they're even getting a discount. Or at least they pay the same price, but just good to do that, and actually required to let people know. Plus, I think people sometimes actually think like, "Oh, is she getting something in return?" But this makes it really clear, and you're following all laws and rules. So this is the terms of use that I talked about for the actual online courses and products. And I know, Chef AJ, you have an online course now and are teaching online course creation, which I think is amazing because it's such a brilliant way to get lots of great information to people. And especially now as we're all moving virtually, that there's so many people who need to and want to start businesses online. So it's a great source of revenue. And this is really important, these terms of use, to protect your hard work. Again, it's pretty much the same as the terms and conditions, but it's specific for your courses and products, and you can tailor it to them. So you want to make sure people know what they can and cannot do with the work. And what exactly are they getting? You don't want to have people come back to you and say, "I didn't get this. You promised me I would get something, that they didn't get." If they are paying up front, they probably know that, but if you allow them to pay in increments, then you want to make sure there are rules for how that works. Because what if something happens and the payment doesn't go through? What are the rules for that? And can you discontinue their access to the program, or how does that work? So you just want to really think about these things and make them clear up front. Refund policies and cancellation policies, same thing. And then like we talked about, you protect your work. You tell people, this is my work. You can't take it and use it to start your own business. Or if you have, it's password protected, like, can they share the password? What are they allowed to do with your work? Maybe they can make copies and just use it for themselves as part of the program. And then it's basically the same thing as the terms and conditions. If they say something that you don't like on a comment or a post, can you delete it? Or if they say something you do like they give a great testimonial, this is really helping me, I feel the best I've ever felt, then maybe you want to use that. And so you can either ask them later and get a release to use that, or you could just say, upfront in your terms of use, if you say something, I may use it later as a testimonial to promote my program. Again, you want to have the disclaimers in there, and that you're not guaranteeing that they're going to get any results, right? Because you can't control how other people, you can't live their life for them. So even though you may have great recommendations, you are not guaranteeing, if it's a weight loss program, that they're going to lose weight, or if you're giving financial information. If you're giving coaching, business coaching, you are not guaranteeing that they are going to be financially successful. They have to do the hard work, and this isn't a guarantee of anything. And then also, what happens if there is a dispute? So usually in contracts, you will see either a dispute resolution term, where you say we're going to go to mediation, or we go to arbitration, or if you do have to go to court, if you are selling things online all over the world, you want to tell people that they have to come to you. So if they want to sue you, it has to be, for example, Chef AJ in the county near Indio and in California. So you want to make sure that you don't have to fly to Germany unless you want to see Toby. So this is really important. And again, it protects your work, and it protects your income, because we want to make sure you're getting the payments that you deserve when people purchase your products. This is also required actually by law now. And I should say, the reason we talk about the EU, so I should have clarified this at the beginning. Some people may say, but I'm not in the EU, I'm just in the US. The problem is that anytime we have an online business, unless you can really be sure and guarantee that no one from the EU is clicking on your site and giving any sort of information, then you have to abide by the EU regulations. They're called GDPR, with respect to privacy. And these went into effect in May of 2018. So the problem is, when you have an online business, you just have to assume that someone from California and someone from the EU are probably accessing your site. And so that's why we need to abide by these two rules. And so as part of the EU regulations, in addition to requirements for the privacy policy, you also have to have specific way for getting someone's email into your email newsletter. So oftentimes what we used to see is people say, get my free gift, give me, type your name and your email, or just your email, and I'll send you my free PDF, or I'll send you my series of videos. And then once that happens, they automatically sign them up to their email newsletter. Well, now you can no longer do that. You have to tell people affirmatively, like, if you sign up, I'm going to put you on my email newsletter, so that they know. Or you have to get them to click another button that says you're also agreeing to sign up for my email newsletter. And then also, if you use cookies on your website, which tracks how people move around the web, you have to now tell people. So probably people have seen the pop-up boxes in Windows that say, allow cookies. You actually now have to do that if you have cookies on your website. Oops. And just some last things to consider for online businesses. So you want to start thinking about if you have you can do it at the very start of your online business, or you can wait until you have a little bit more at stake. It's just sort of, you need to talk to someone and think about what's right for your situation. But registering your copyrights and your trademarks. So the copyright registration process is actually pretty easy and it's inexpensive. And that would be if you wanted to actually register a copyright in an entire course. You can do that, or you can register individual things like a book or a PDF. And then the trademark process is a much longer process and it's more expensive and oftentimes does require an attorney, someone to guide you through the process, because you have to really make sure you're not spending the money when it's not worth it. And it's not a mark that the USPTO is likely to give you a registration for. So you can think about that down the line. If you have a name you love and you would just be so upset if someone else started using it, or if you have a lot of money into your brand. And then, but if you don't have an actual registration, even though those get you extra rights, if you need to sue someone or tell them that to stop copying your things, you can still put people on notice that it's yours by using the copyright symbol and then the year that you created it, and either your name or your business's name if you have a business that owns the copyright. So anything you create, you want to think about, do I want to own it personally or do I want my business to own it? This is more of an issue if you wanted to sell your business later. And so someone would care if the business actually owned the copyright. And then the other thing is trademarks. You can legally use the TM symbol, but if you've registered your trademark, then you can use the R in a circle. And that is actual registration. You get complete rights all over the US to stop someone else from using your similar trademark mark. And then you want to think about agreements with partners and affiliates and independent contractors, and put everything. I always like everything in writing up front, even though contracts can sometimes seem scary. You put everything in writing while everyone's happy and in a good mood. So if something arises later, you're not digging through conversations and emails or anything like that. You know upfront what everyone agreed to. And then you want to make sure if you have independent contractors who create anything for you, they actually legally own the rights to that work. So if you have employees, it's different. They own the rights to anything they create for you as while they're an employee. But if you have independent contractors, you might want to think about asking them, can we put something in the contract that makes sure I own the intellectual property of anything you create? And then last but not least, affiliate programs. So I guess I should say not least, there are probably other things, but if you have affiliate programs yourself, you want to think about what are the rules for those and what happens, what are people required to do? What do they get in return? So lots of things to think about. So those are just the basics of things to think about when you're starting an online business. And like I said, if you are a licensed professional, then there's lots of different things to consider, especially with telemedicine and telehealth, because unfortunately, we do have to be licensed in the state where the patient is located, not the doctor. So that's the state that applies. And for naturopathic doctors, we have trouble getting licensed in the first place. So we don't have something like the medical doctors. They have an interstate licensing compact where it's easier for them to get licensed in multiple states. All the states agree that, if someone's licensed in one state, they can be licensed in our state too. So that is it. Should I discontinue the screen share?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. That was fascinating. And as I was watching the presentation, I started thinking about other websites and claims they make on other websites. I'm going to notice things more since watching this presentation.
Oh, good. No, I do that all the time as I watch things. I go, oh no, they don't have it. And there's people often say, well, what is the risk that someone's going to know I don't have a privacy policy? Or, is California or the EU really going to come after me? And you just don't know. You just don't know, and it's better to avoid anything. It's a simple thing to do, and you just do it once and you have it there. And then also, what your rules are too to follow.
Do you ever get involved like with social media? Like, I just wonder why, I mean, things are allowed that you wouldn't see in life, the way people are treated on YouTube and it, I mean, I guess, you can't legislate against people being assholes, but still some of the things you see are so inflammatory that it's incredible that it's allowed, on Twitter and Facebook. I don't, it seems like there is no, what's the word when it's a lawless society? What's that word I'm thinking of? That on social media there are no laws, pretty much.
Oh, I mean, people just, I feel like people think they're hidden oftentimes. And that, if they're more anonymous. I totally agree. And it's harder to control. It's just, social media flies by so quickly that it's so hard to control. Right. I'm not as I've tried to be active on social media, and I tried to start doing more Instagram. Facebook, I was okay because that came around when I was in college, when I was a junior in college. So I sort of got in from the beginning. So I'm happy with Facebook, but Instagram, I tried to figure out, and it took me a few weeks to figure out what I was doing.
So we have a question from Dr. Krantz. She says, how does a licensed physician act across state lines as a health coach safely?
Oh, this is a great question and a very common question. So, okay. So starting from the beginning, I will just say it's all about risk tolerance and your personal risk tolerance. For medical professionals, I would say it needs to be completely separate from your medical practice to be crystal clear to people. And you need to have agreements with people. If you felt that you wanted to take this risk, and I actually should go in, what is the risk? The risk is that it's hard to take off your doctor hat. You have so much knowledge and important knowledge, and it's hard to remove that hat when you're talking to someone and put on your health coach or health consultant hat. And there's a risk that someone could get upset at something you did, or they had a bad reaction to a supplement, or something happens. And if they're in a state where you're not licensed as a medical doctor, any attorney who's there is going to say you were practicing without a license, and they're going to sue you probably in that other state. This is right, all of the what ifs and the possible risks. They're going to sue you in that other state and tell that state's medical board, which is probably going to tell your state's medical board. And then there's the issue of, well, does your malpractice coverage cover you for what you were doing in that other state? You can purchase separate, it's not malpractice, but it's separate coverage for health coaching to protect yourself against that. But then you go back to the issue of, do you really feel like you can remove your doctor hat? And do you feel comfortable that really what you're giving is just health information and education? The more you work one-on-one with individuals, the more risk you have in doing health coaching. The more you stick, and that's because there's more likely that people are going to say you gave me medical advice. But the more you stick to group programs and courses, which is why I think this is a great thing for doctors, especially, to share their information in a group format, even to be a course. You could have a group membership program or something. Uh-oh, did I freeze?
Yeah, just for a
Am I
little
still
bit.
there?
Yeah, you're back on. Yeah.
Oh, okay. But the group programs and courses, it's harder for someone to claim that you were giving them individual advice, because even if you do a live webinar with people, a live Zoom, for example, where they can ask questions, if it gets too specific, you can always say, listen, I am not your medical doctor, so I'm so sorry, I can't answer that question specifically for you. I don't know your individual information. So you definitely want to talk to your own doctor. Or if I'm in, if you're in California and I'm, licensed in California, please come see me. I'd love to work with you. So I think it's easier to avoid getting people's individual information. But certainly people are doing it. It's just a matter of your risk tolerance. And then also, as I mentioned, nutrition laws are very specific. There's actually what the American Nutrition Association, they've really gone deep into this, and they've basically created a map of the United States where they have green, yellow, and red states. So actually, the good thing is the majority are green states. What this means is there are no restrictions on people giving nutrition information in that state, and even no scope protection. So scope protection is basically when they say you can't even refer to yourself as a nutritionist, or if you were not a registered dietitian or a licensed nutritionist. Then there are, the green states are good and the majority are green. There's no regulations about who can give nutrition advice in those states. The yellow states, they usually have scope protection. So you just, unless you're registered there, licensed there as a nutritionist, you just can't call yourself a licensed nutritionist, but you can give individual nutrition information. And then there are red states where you can't give any individualized nutrition to people if you are not licensed there. So they're actually, majority are green, so that's good. You just, if you're giving health coaching information or health, it depends also how you define what you're giving them. Are you giving them nutrition and supplements, or are you literally just coaching them as a health coach does? Because health coach is not a defined term, but usually it's more of helping people follow advice given to them by someone else. And maybe there's a little bit of nutrition in there, but it's helping them stay on track with their goals, and keeping them accountable to themselves. So anytime you do any nutrition, you have to be aware of that too. And then lots of states will specifically say in their rules and regulations, you can give general information and education regarding nutrition. So again, that is the safest without having to know every state's laws. But of course, you can always go to an attorney. I love delving into this stuff about what is the law in this specific state.
Gina says, where can you see this color map of the states, and what color is California?
California's green. California is green, but there are specific rules, and the website is at the American Nutrition Association, the ANA. I think it's on their advocacy page. I'm afraid if I click now to look that I'll mess up something with the, with the Zoom. I hate to touch it.
I feel the same way when I'm on. I hate to jump screens.
But if you go to ana.org and their advocacy page, I'm pretty sure that's it. If you want me to, I can see if I can find it now.
Yeah, as long as you don't disappear. So
I know, I'm worried. I can always send it to you later, but I think you should be able to find it there. And it's really helpful. They have you can click on each specific state. But what I was going to say with California, there is a specific rule that you have to, if you have an office, an in-person office, you have to have a posted sign that says you are not a licensed, dietitian, registered dietitian. So they allow you to do it, but you just have to, again, the big thing with the law is disclosure. Tell people.
All right. This is a little bit off topic, but you're getting so many comments about your skin. I noticed that too when you first logged on. Cassie says your skin is so healthy looking. And Sepentia, I hope I pronounced your name right, says, Dr. Berg has beautiful, flawless skin. Besides plant-based diet, is there any other products you use?
Oh, thank you so much. Okay, well, I will thank you so much. As Chef AJ knows, the secret is greens. My I'll tell you the products I use too, because I have some I love and my skin is sensitive, so I use the same things every day. And I love them. And I actually noticed a difference when I started using this one. I've used it for 5 years, 6 years now, maybe. But I do green smoothies, like literally fill the Vitamix twice full with greens. It's like 70%, my smoothies are 70% green, a little bit of fruit. I do that twice a day and then have greens for dinner. So greens. And for my skin, I use it's called enzymatic therapy or DermaClear. It's an enzymatic therapy brand sulfur soap. And so I'm very passionate actually about toxin-free products. That was the other thing I mentioned to you that I was like, oh, I'd love to talk about toxin-free products in skincare, because the endocrine disruptors and all of the things that are in our daily products, they actually do get into the skin and have all sorts of effects. But anyways, DermaClear soap, and I use that morning and night, and with the Clarisonic brush. And then as soon as I get out of the shower, you don't want your face to get too dry. You need the moisture there. I put on a B3 serum. It's niacinamide. And the brand I use, I find on Amazon, it's called Gia Naturals. I'm not an affiliate. I maybe should be now.
Yeah, absolutely. Seriously, next time.
But it's called Gia Naturals, and I chose that one. There are actually lots of them that you can find online. And I usually don't love to purchase those types of things on Amazon. Definitely don't recommend purchasing supplements on Amazon, but that one was very clean, no toxic ingredients. And then I put that on, a lot of it. And then I use a Badger Balm toxin-free zinc oxide sunscreen that's clear, but you have to get the clear zinc oxide, because the regular zinc oxide will turn your face white. And so, yeah, make sure to get the clear one.
Well, Ellen says your face actually glows.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Well, I think it's the combo green smoothies and the niacinamide and Badger Balm.
Okay. Well, maybe you'll give me the links for the products you mentioned, even though if you're not an affiliate, you could maybe put it in your Amazon store or something like that, because Valeria. Yes. So you might not want to answer this question, and it's okay if you don't, and I'll just give your email, but I apologize if I don't pronounce your name correctly. Sepentia. How much does Dr. Berg charge for a consultation?
Oh, goodness. You know what, I'm trying to, so I just really started going out on my own, because like I said, I was working as an employee at a women's clinic in Sherman Oaks up until very recently. So if it's okay, please get in touch with me. And I'm trying to figure that out, because I know everyone's seeking doctors, and I want to make sure it's, an appropriate price for everyone to get the help they need, or attorney care that they need.
Oh, here's an interesting question, because she's a lawyer, she's a doctor, she's a lawyer, she's a doctor. Jessie says,
I know.
What you're talking about, can it help protect a doctor in a lawsuit situation if the session is recorded? And would that be a problem in terms of patient confidentiality?
Okay. So first off, this must be via telemedicine? I'm imagining. I'm going to answer it as if it's via telemedicine. So important, if you're doing something via telemedicine, you need to get consent from the patient beforehand. And I draft very specific telemedicine consents, because you have to give them, just like any informed consent, the risks and the benefits and what happens. So the risks are, the internet, even though we're using a HIPAA compliant secure platform, something could wrong. And the internet is never 100% secure. Or we could lose our internet connection. What happens in that case? You want to make sure to tell them that, you know, HIPAA still applies to your telemedicine. All of the same rules, all of the same standard of care, everything still applies to your telemedicine situation. And you want to make clear that if you, as the doctor or medical professional, feel that their situation is not appropriate for telemedicine and it's something they need to actually see a doctor for in person, that you may be able to require them to actually go see someone, whether it's you, if you can, if you're close enough, or another doctor who's in their state or location. So informed consent is really important. And then the benefits and then all the states have different rules about what you have to have in that informed consent. And one of those things is you have to tell them if you're recording it or not. So if you do record it, it becomes part of the medical record, but you need to really make clear that you're recording it. And the question about whether it reduces your liability or not, you know, that's just sort of up in the air, because it's just like any medical record or chart you take, where if something ever happened in the future, if you like what happened in the recording and it benefits you, then maybe that's good. But there's also the chance that maybe there's something in there that's not in your favor. And so in charting, it's always really important too, if it's telemedicine, to make sure you're clear. This was a telemedicine appointment. The person was located an X location, because it's really important where they're located. Was anyone else there? If they have someone else on their end, and usually the doctor is supposed to be in a very private location, or if they're not, they need to tell people. And then in the chart, it needs to be very clear exactly what happened, what you saw, because you can do some physical exam via telemedicine. So you can tell their demeanor, you can tell their facial expression, or, you know, their eye, not their expression, but their eyes. And, you know, you can even have another person who's there with them do some sort of physical exam and help you do that. So whether the recording is a good thing or a bad thing, that's hard to say. But you definitely need to tell them ahead of time. And I think I would probably not record, in my personal opinion.
Does doctors' malpractice insurance cover them for these online telemedicine appointments?
They do. You definitely should talk to your malpractice carrier. I know when I talked to mine, they cover telemedicine. It was included in my policy, but only with respect to the practice of naturopathic medicine when the patient, and in my scope, when the patient is located in California. So if I did something for someone who's outside of California, or I did something that was outside of my specific scope, because as a naturopathic doctor in California, we have a very specific scope of what we can and cannot do. For example, with prescriptions, we actually have to have an MD supervisor, or we can't do certain, we can maybe order certain diagnostic exams, or we can order ultrasounds, but we can't review an ultrasound. So for example, or basically, yes, the answer to the question is talk with your malpractice carrier. As long as you're in the scope, usually, of what your medical practice is, and you're in the state that the malpractice carrier is covering, then you should be fine. And you probably, if you want to get a license, or you're a medical doctor and able to get a license in multiple states, then definitely talk to your malpractice carrier to make sure that you're going to be covered in those other states. The beauty for medical doctors is your scope doesn't differ with the different states, unlike naturopathic doctors, where it's totally different depending on which state you're in.
Very cool. Well, we have time for one more question, and I'll ask you to please put your naturopathic physician hat on. Valeria says her daughter, 2.5 years old, vegan, has an eczema and some bacterial overgrowth. During the doctor's appointment, she was advised a bleach bath. What do you think about that?
Oh, actually, there is a fabulous naturopathic doctor who I've followed and learned from, who does actually recommend that for eczema, and it is very effective. But you want to make sure to follow the very specific instructions that the doctor has definitely follow those specific instructions. But I have never used it personally with the patient or with myself, but I do know that it is very effective, and the doctor who I have heard it from, I respect her highly.
But that doesn't burn the skin to like, I mean, is that literally you like dip somebody in bleach?
They do, and it is evidently very effective. But I don't know the exact formula they give, so I'm sure it is a pretty exact amount of the bleach, I imagine. But the other thing that I would say I've seen very effective for eczema, so even if you're following a vegan diet, as we all know, that can mean lots of different things. And something very effective for eczema and skin conditions in general, acne even, oh goodness, is food sensitivities and allergies. And finding out what your sensitivities are can be very helpful. And you can do it with a test, but the gold standard is an elimination diet. And if you do a vegan SOS, SOFAs free diet, that is almost like an elimination diet. There can still be something in that that is triggering your sensitivity, but I've seen great success with convincing people to move to a vegan diet, first of all, and remove things like eggs. I like soy, but sometimes soy can be a problem for people. Nuts, well, we're not concerned here, but sometimes the patients I see are eating, shellfish, or I use Dr. Clapper's when I'm trying to convince people to never use dairy again. It's a baby calf growth fluid.
Absolutely. Okay. Dr. Krant asked a very interesting question. She says, what if the patient, like she lives in New York, so what if the patient wants a telemedicine visit? They live in California, but they're calling from like another state, like North Carolina, because they're on vacation. Does it matter where the patient is calling from, or only where the patient lives?
It matters, unfortunately, where they're calling from. And there are very limited exceptions that states will give, like if they just had a surgery in another state and you're not located there, or if you are consulting with another doctor. So there are some limited exceptions, but it really does matter where the patient is located. And again, it all comes down to your risk tolerance, because it's that same situation where if something happened while they were there for that limited time, what are the risks? But it could happen. That something goes wrong. So yes, technically.
But how would you know? Because people nowadays have cell phones for places they lived 20 years ago. How would the doctor know where you are unless you said to them?
Exactly. And so that's why doctors are supposed to ask their location.
Oh, interesting. This is fascinating. This is a lot of things I never would have thought of.
And I think the problem really is that the laws have not caught up with the technology. That's the problem. And the medical board is getting on board. The medical boards and medical associations, they're getting on board fast, because great advances with this interstate licensing compact, where doctors can get licensed in multiple states much more easily. So I think that's wonderful. And I as a doctor a naturopathic doctor in California can't accept Medicare or even insurance for my visits, unfortunately. In other states we can, but for MDs, the insurance carriers are catching up and allowing reimbursement, very specific codes for telemedicine, Medicare, Medicaid. So everything is advancing much faster to catch up with the technology. And there are some great platforms, the electronic medical records that even allow for telemedicine. So it's fascinating. And that's why I loved it. It was a combination of my two passions.
Yeah, it was so interesting since this pandemic. A lot of I had a mild traumatic brain injury in January, so I couldn't go in to see doctors. So I'm doing a lot of them either on phone or online, and it was it's nice. You don't have to drive.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
Well,
and well, that's why I couldn't remember the word anarchy that Jesse came up with. I still have a little problem with
ah,
memory, but yeah, I'm doing good. Thank you. So Dr. Cran said no. She meant that she lives in New York. The patient lives in New York, but calls her from vacation elsewhere. Same thing. You're saying they're
that's
supposed to be technically in the state that they're
yeah.
having the treatment in. Yeah.
Oh,
Interesting. This is
yeah, no, that's exactly it. Even if they're, a resident of New York, you're a licensed practitioner in New York. As soon as they leave New York, then you have a problem, a potential problem, and technically it's unlicensed medical practice. But sometimes too, people argue, well, telephone is different than the two-way audio-visual, real-time. But now the laws are like really defining exactly what is telehealth and telemedicine. So it would be great if all the states got on board and created a very common rule and
Well,
law.
we know that the states aren't on board with anything during this
No.
pandemic, so I don't think that's going to happen with telemedicine. We can't even get them on board with sheltering or mask wearing. But this has been really an interesting topic, and I enjoyed it very much. Thank you.
Oh, good. Okay, well, I'm glad because I know it's not as fun or exciting as a cooking demo, but I was hoping it would be helpful for people.
Well, I think for the people that need this information, it's going to be very helpful. And that's why we like to offer just like a buffet of interesting people with interesting topics. So, but definitely come back as a naturopath next time. Wear a different hat. We'd love to talk to you. I know you have a really deep interest in GI things, which are really important and very, very prevalent right now. A lot of people having that. So thank you so much, Dr. Berg, and thank all of you guys for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Come back tomorrow when we have plant-based nephrologist, Dr. Sean Hashmi from Kaiser Permanente. And thanks for watching, Dr. Krant. We look forward to your upcoming episode as well. Thanks again, Dr. Berg. It was very great meeting you today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the honor.
All right. Ellen says you're a keeper, but that means you get to come back. Okay.
Oh, yay.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.